I thought she was my forever. Until her deception shattered everything. My ex came out as a lesbian right before our wedding date. Best drama, Reddit family tales. It had been 7 solid years with Dana. From the very beginning, she was open about her bisexuality, sharing stories of past relationships with women before we became serious. Honestly, it never bothered me. It felt good having that kind of honesty between us right from the start. Our relationship was never about fireworks or drama. It was more like a steady flame. Sure, we had our disagreements, like her habit of leaving dishes in the sink, or my tendency to work late without giving a heads up. But we always found our way back, talking things through over late-night cups of coffee or early morning walks in the park near our apartment. Living together brought its own rhythm to our lives. We fell into comfortable routines. Every Saturday morning, we'd hit the local farmer's market, Dana belining it to the fresh-cut flowers, while I always picked up an extra loaf of sourdough from the bakery. Evenings often found us in our little kitchen, Dana trying out new vegan recipes she'd found online while I played taste tester. Or, we'd both curl up on the couch, binging on our latest Netflix obsession or deep diving into playlists of newly discovered bands. Our relationship might not have been the stuff of grand romances, but it was real. It was the small moments, the quiet understanding, the shared smiles over inside jokes that nobody else got. It was in these moments that I saw a future with her, a lifetime of these small, perfect snapshots. And after 7 years, it felt right to take the next step and ask her to marry me. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was one built on countless little moments that told me we were right for each other. Everything seemed to line up perfectly. We were solid emotionally and financially. We'd built a life together in our cozy 2-bedroom apartment, surrounded by plants Dana loved to care for and framed photos capturing our best moments. It felt like everything we did naturally synced, whether it was saving up for a dream vacation or just planning our weekly meals. We were a team, and I never doubted we were on the same track. So, deciding to propose felt like the most natural next step. I wanted everything to be perfect, to reflect the thoughtfulness and depth of our relationship. It took weeks of planning, selecting the right ring, a simple yet elegant band that I knew would suit her understated style, choosing the perfect day, and orchestrating a scenario that was intimate and personal. I chose the little art gallery where we had our first date, under the guise of a new exhibit. I knew she wouldn't want to miss it. The gallery was small and intimate, filled with soft lighting and the gentle hum of other visitors, giving it a lively yet private feel. As we walked through, discussing various pieces, my heart pounded with a mix of nerves and excitement. At the center of the gallery, beneath her favorite painting, a vibrant abstract piece that always seemed to ignite her passion for art, I stopped. The moment felt suspended in time as I reached into my pocket, feeling the cool metal of the ring box. I got down on one knee, and her hands flew to her mouth in surprise. "Will you marry me?" The words felt both monumental and terrifyingly fragile in the air between us. Her eyes, always so full of warmth and understanding, widened as she hesitated. That moment of hesitation felt like an eternity, stretching out painfully long. I could see the conflict in her gaze, and my heart sank a little with uncertainty. But then, softly, almost a whisper, she said, "Yes." The glow of our engagement should have filled those next few days with joy and excited planning. In many ways, it did. Our friends were ecstatic, their faces lighting up as they tossed around ideas for the wedding, beachside ceremonies, rustic barn venues, even a destination wedding in Italy. The enthusiasm was contagious, and it carried me along for a while. But something nagged at me, an undercurrent of unease that I couldn't shake. It started with Dana's hesitation, that moment, brief as it was, that planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Why did she hesitate? I couldn't help but ask her later that evening as we lay in bed, the light from the street lamps casting soft shadows across our room. "I was nervous," she said simply, her voice steady but her body tense beside me. I wanted to believe her, to write it off as pre-proposal jitters, but it felt like there was something more she wasn't saying. I pushed a little, but she shut down the conversation with a kiss and whispered, "Let's just enjoy this moment." So I let it go, not wanting to spoil the peace we had. But then there were her parents. We visited them the next day to share our news. I expected joy, or at least a warm embrace of congratulations. Instead, I was met with strange smiles and hesitant congratulations. Her father's pat on my back was a bit too forceful, and her mother's eyes darted away too quickly when our gaze met. They were acting, putting on a show of happiness, but their eyes didn't match their expressions. This was not the reaction I expected from the people who should have been overjoyed for their daughter. Their odd behavior only added layers to my unease. Why would they fake their happiness? What was making them hold back? The questions multiplied, swirling in my mind. I tried talking to Dana about it, pointing out how off her parents seemed. "They're just surprised, that's all," she said, brushing it off too quickly. Too easily. Our friends' reactions stood in stark contrast. They were genuinely thrilled, already diving into planning and celebrations. Their genuine excitement was a relief, but it also made the falseness of her parents' reactions even more stark and troubling. It felt like I was living in two realities, one where our engagement was the best news ever, and another shadowed by hidden truths and half-hearted congratulations. The mixture of reactions left me feeling off balance. I was caught between the joy of our friends and the unsettling response from her parents. Then, one day, everything changed. I walked through our front door after a long day at work, expecting to find Dana in the kitchen or curled up on the sofa, as I always did. Instead, I found her standing by the door, her posture tense, a suitcase at her feet. My heart sank at the sight. "What's going on, Dana?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the dread beginning to curl inside me. She looked at me, her eyes not holding the warmth I was used to, but a somber resolve instead. "Listen, I know this is going to be hard for you," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm not bisexual, I'm a lesbian." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and cold. "My parents knew this for 2 years," she continued, "and this is why they weren't happy and were faking it. Please, I beg you, don't make this difficult. Just let me leave. Don't cry, don't beg, and don't scream. Let's just let things go like adults." She picked up her bag and walked past me, not once looking back. The front door closed with a click that echoed through the empty apartment. I stood there, frozen, unable to process the sudden void she left in her wake. My mind was racing, but blank. The shock pinned me in place. How could the person I loved, the person I was about to marry, keep something like this from me? How could she leave so suddenly, so coldly, as if our years together meant nothing? 3 months had passed since Dana left. During these months, not a single text, call, or knock on the door came. It was as if I had vanished from the lives of those I considered close. Dana had blocked me the very day she left, and her parents, who once welcomed me into their home, didn't bother to reach out. Our friends, mutual and otherwise, remained silent. Their social media posts were filled with praise for Dana, celebrating her bravery and authenticity. Each post was a dagger, reminding me of my own isolation. My health deteriorated rapidly. The stress and emotional turmoil manifested physically. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was hospitalized 3 times in those 3 months. Each visit was a blur of IV drips, sympathetic nurses, and doctors advising me to take it easy, as if my body's betrayal could be moderated with a bit of rest. The concern from the hospital staff only highlighted the indifference from those I used to call friends and family. Meanwhile, Dana's journey was public. Her narrative, one of overcoming and authenticity, was being celebrated everywhere. The world praised her, admired her courage, while I became a ghost in my own life, unseen and unmissed. It wasn't just the breakup that hurt. It was the total abandonment, the erasure of my existence from the lives of those I loved. Right now, the anger feels too heavy to carry, too dense to ignite. I'm just floored by the disbelief, how swiftly my world turned upside down, and how everyone I thought I could lean on simply vanished. I talk with my therapist because, in a way, you all are like my therapist. Every session with her peels back layers I didn't even know were there. I began therapy with the hope, maybe naive, that a few sessions would set me right and I'd find a way to quickly navigate through the emotional wreckage Dana left behind. But it's turning out to be more complex, more grueling than I ever imagined. I find myself sitting in the same soft chair each week. The room is always quiet, except for the subtle ticking of the clock and the occasional sounds of the city that drift through the window. These sessions are my safe space, yet they challenge me deeply. As I talk through my days and recount the events that have unfolded, I realize how much I've bottled up. Not just recently, but over years, decades even. I've started to cry a lot. It's not just a tear or two, but a profound, shaking type of crying that comes from a place deep inside. I cry for my parents, who I lost too soon, and for my little sister, whose laughter I can still hear if I let the silence linger long enough. I cry for what happened with Dana, how her deception cut so deep, and for my friends who turned their backs when I needed them the most, treating me like an afterthought, not the person they had known for years. The therapist listens, her notes quiet, her nods encouraging, but the work is mine to do. Each session, each revelation, feels like I'm trying to climb out of a deep well, the walls damp and mossy. My hand slips every time I think I've found a new hold. It's frustrating, and sometimes I leave feeling worse than when I entered, but there's also a glimmer of hope, an understanding that this is a process, and it's supposed to be hard. "You're unpacking a lot of buried emotions," she tells me, her voice always steady. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Healing isn't linear." These words have become a mantra for me on the hardest days. I know I'm not an expert at any of this. I can't neatly dissect my feelings or predict how long it will take to feel whole again. It's a journey without a clear map, filled with unexpected turns and setbacks. But I'm learning about grief, about betrayal, about the strength it takes to rebuild trust. Not just in others, but in myself. This isn't the quick fix I hoped for. It's slower, messier, more painful. Yet, I cling to the moments of clarity, the small victories, like when I can talk about my sister without breaking down, or when I can reflect on Dana's actions without feeling that deep, dark anger. After losing my parents and then my little sister, the world seemed to shrink down to a pinpoint of grief that was almost unbearable. When Dana came into my life, it was like a breath of fresh air sweeping through a long-sealed room. She became my focus, my future, someone to build a new kind of family with, a chance to start over and create a life filled with the happiness and stability I had lost so suddenly. I poured everything into our relationship, every dinner cooked, every date night planned, every small surprise was a brick in the foundation of the new life I envisioned for us. I wanted her to feel loved, not just ordinarily loved, but deeply cherished. I made sure to listen to her dreams, support her ambitions, and be there whenever she needed someone to lean on. Dana wasn't just my partner, she was my confidant. She was the one person who really knew every facet of me, my vulnerabilities, my deepest fears, and my hopes. In my heart, Dana filled a space that had been hollowed out by loss. She was my soft spot, the person whose happiness became synonymous with my own. Over the years, this bond only deepened, rooted in countless shared moments and private jokes, the kind that weave two lives inseparably together. But what perhaps wasn't clear in everything I've shared before is the depth of my commitment to her. Every plan for the future, every dream about what lay ahead, included her. When I thought about where I wanted to be in 5, 10, or 20 years, it was always with Dana by my side. She wasn't just part of my life. She was central to every part of my vision for the future. This is why the betrayal cut so deeply. It felt not just like a personal loss, but like losing a part of myself. When she left, it wasn't just a partner walking out the door. It was as if she took away the very essence of the family I had tried to rebuild. The promise of a new life, a new beginning that had once seemed so bright and certain, crumbled into uncertainty and disillusionment. Now, left in the wake of her departure, I grapple not only with the pain of her betrayal, but with the reality of being alone again, confronted with the echoes of past losses. It's a strange, hollow feeling to realize that the person you trusted with your deepest self, the person you believed would never hurt you, was the one who left the deepest cut. The journey to heal from this isn't just about moving past a broken relationship, it's about reconstructing my sense of trust and understanding what family and love mean to me now. Coming back from the army was like stepping into a different world. After years of structured days where the stakes were life and death, the transition to civilian life felt disorienting, quiet and mundane. I was carrying more than just my duffel bag home. I had memories and traumas tucked away, the kind that don't just fade with time or can be left at the doorstep. It was during this turbulent phase of readjustment that I met Dana. She entered my life when the echoes of my military service were still loud in my mind, a time when I was trying to find who I was outside of a uniform. She saw past the facade I presented to the world, the decorated veteran with medals and a straight posture. Dana saw the vulnerabilities, the night terrors, the silent moments of reflection that consumed me. And rather than turning away, she stepped closer, choosing to understand and share the burden of my hidden battles. It was love at first sight, not just in the romantic sense, but in a profound, life-altering way. Dana represented hope, a beacon in the fog of my transition. Her presence brought a sense of normalcy and peace that had eluded me since my return. I was enchanted, not just by her beauty, but by her compassion and unwavering support. So, yes, perhaps it was naive, but I believed in the fairy tale she represented. Dana was the one for me, the person who could make the concept of home feel real again, not just a place, but a state of being. In her, I saw the potential to rebuild the family I had lost, to create a future filled with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the solitude and solemnity of my past. That belief in our future was what fueled every decision, every sacrifice. I poured all of my hopes into our relationship, trusting that this was the path to a new beginning, a life where the shadows of war and loss would be replaced by shared happiness and mutual growth. Each moment with her reinforced this dream, building up an image of what could be if we continued to walk this path together. Reflecting on the past year, I've come to realize that life doesn't always unfold as planned, and sometimes the most painful experiences carry the most profound lessons. Living through the whirlwind of betrayal, abandonment, and the subsequent journey of self-discovery has taught me more than any single moment of happiness ever could.